Perfect. All right, cool. All right, thank you everyone for joining, and good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you're joining from. Thank you for taking the time to join us in this webinar. So just a few things before we get started. Let me change that. Okay, some housekeeping. For best results, please close other programs on your desktop. If you're watching on a desktop, just makes it a lot more effective and less distractions. And yeah, if you could do that, that would be great. Use the chat to ask a question. There's also a Q&A icon. You could ask a question there. If there's any sound problems or anything, my colleague Jasmine is gonna handle that for us. And then, yeah, you can wait till the end of the webinar if you want to ask a question, but you can always ask as we go through it, as I share my screen and as I take you through everything. And you'll be also asked to interact through polling, chat, and so forth. So we're going to take about an hour or so, and I'm going to share with you what I believe are some very important things when you're looking to set up Google Ads campaigns. Okay, so that's me, Mike. I'm a Google Ads specialist. I have been one for over 13 years, set up managing campaigns for a wide range of clients in different industries. So I've worked with a lot of small, medium, even large companies. And yeah, I've been doing this. I also have experience with Google Analytics, and I'm a Google partner as well. Right, so I've got a poll for you here, and it's, are you running Google Ads campaigns at the moment? So please, if you could answer this, then we'll see, gives us an idea of who's on the line and so forth. Bob has raised their hand. Let me see. Is that a question, Bob? Let me see. Yes, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
I can, Bob. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, I just I thought I was clicking to say, yes, I am running a campaign. So that's the case. I have a campaign running.
Okay, that's fine. No problem. I'll just put the poll, and then you can just answer it, and that will be great. You can put your hand down now, Bob. That will be great. Okay, right, here comes the poll. I hope it should be okay. Right, if you could go for it, please. Correct. 75% so far. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so I would say 56% are running campaigns, and 60% of you are running campaigns, and 40% are not. So yeah, that's quite interesting. A lot of clients I work with tend to be already running campaigns, but they're not working. So I think this webinar is important for that, and we'll try and address some of the reasons why campaigns don't work and how you can set them up effectively. We're going to just go through a basic campaign setup, and then you can ask questions, just any questions, I'll answer them as we go along, or even at the end if you want to do that. Okay, yeah, it's almost like 60% or so who are running campaigns. All right. Okay, I'm gonna close that. And right, let's get started. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen. Well, I'm gonna take you through, this is my account, and just take you through some of the ways to really set up a campaign, and we're going to be focusing on search, because search is the primary. Yes, you've got Performance Max, you've got shopping and so forth, but I guess the fundamentals are quite similar. What I would say is, most of us, if anyone is running campaigns, it's more likely that you're running search and something else, shopping. I always think running search is important, even for e-commerce sites. If you've got the two and shopping, it becomes more effective like that. So, right, so we're going to start. This is the Google Ads interface. This is what it looks like for anyone who doesn't have any campaigns, or is not running any, or hasn't actually looked. This is one account, and it's got different campaigns, as you can see, that I'm running in here. Now, if we want to set up a campaign, very simple. We click on our blue button. It gives us a few options. Because I've got existing campaigns, I can always load campaign settings from campaigns that are already running, which will save me time. So it will load things like location, it will load things like bids and stuff like that, which will save you a lot of time. But we want to start from a new campaign. And with Google Ads, it's one of the first things you need to ask yourself is, what is your goal? What is it you're trying to achieve through Google Ads? Is it a product you're promoting, a service, a category, or even a charity? What is it that you want to achieve in Google Ads? Now, having a PPC strategy or Google Ads strategy is important. That strategy can include, obviously, your objectives. You could have it in a document or something, documented somewhere. Have your objectives, whatever goals you want to set, and then do your research and find out, things like the volume of the traffic that you need to get, how many conversions you need to get, and so forth. What I'm showing you here is after you've really done your keyword research. It's a good idea to start with your keyword research and then go into this. But you could also start with your objectives in here and then do the keyword research when you get to the ad groups. There's an option to do that. But if you're going to go with keyword research first, we've got tools and settings, and we've got a keyword planner tool. Anyone who's running campaigns will probably have used this at some point. There are many other tools in the industry, but this one is free, and you can use it and find out what people are searching for on Google and so forth. It generally shows you for Google traffic. It doesn't really show you for partners and all this other stuff, or even other search engines and stuff. It just shows you Google. So there are some limitations to it. But it does help in building your keywords and mapping them out into different ad groups. So yeah, keyword research is a good thing to start with. I mean, I do that when I want to work with clients and I want to show them the potential of click volume, what they're likely to spend, and what conversion rate they're likely to get in the number of conversions. So you could do that, and that's great. So in Google Ads, when we talk objectives, we're talking, what is it you want to achieve? Is it to drive sales to online, by phone or in-store, or you want to get leads, web traffic, product and brand awareness, and so forth? Picking one of these is going to determine the type of features that you get in the campaign. It also determines the campaign types that you get. So for example, if you pick sales, you're going to get things like search campaigns, you're going to get shopping and so forth, because those drive sales. So picking this is important. So if you're going for product and brand consideration, this is more like awareness and so forth. You're looking more on the video and display and sort of platforms to just raise awareness and so forth. You could also go without a guidance, a goals guidance. So you then pick exactly what you want to set in the campaign and use that. So this is probably if you really know what you want to do and you want to have more control. But if you pick these other ones, the system kind of guides you and takes you through it. So for example, let's start with leads. I think that's the one I'm going to pick. So when you pick your objective, what you then get is your goals. So you need to set up goals. If you've got an account and they have goals, they will show up here. As you can see, I've got conversion goals right here. If I want, I can create new goals. One mistake many people make and many of us make is we set up Google Ads, we run Google Ads, and we don't set up proper tracking. We don't track properly. If you don't track, you're going to waste money. And that's a fact. You really have to have some tracking. I mean, even if you've got a good return on ad spend, you should be able to know where your leads, your sales are coming from, which keyword, which search term, which campaign, and so forth. You know, this is the most important thing that you need to have. And setting up conversions, it's not something that we're going to go through here, but it's something that's really key and you need to do. So are you driving sales? So you could set up conversions in Google Analytics and then import these into Google Ads. So you need to be able to definitely set these up. Now, if you're starting from scratch, you may not have any of these. So yeah, you can always just skip it. But at some point when you've done it all, you need to come to tools and settings and go to conversions, measurement right here, and then set up your goals. It's a straightforward process. What it does is it just takes you through how to set up those goals. And if you've got a web developer, they can just add the code for you on the site. Very simple, not difficult. Or through Google Analytics if you wanted to do that. So that's something I definitely recommend. So if we click continue, we then get our campaign types. Because I picked leads, you can see the campaign types that are available to us. And if you remember what I mentioned, we want to try and focus on search. Search advertising is the primary one. Understanding how search works is usually more is the first thing I think everybody should do, and then look at other options like shopping and so forth if they make sense for your business. So with search, we're basically talking about people searching on Google, you know, even Google partner sites, searching and your ads coming up in the top position or in the right or something like that. You will see those text ads and they'll come up either as sponsored or they'll say ads. And I'm sure all of us have searched and we've seen that. So search ads are great. One of the important things about search ads is high intent. So targeting people who are actively searching for something is really powerful. You know, I think it's an amazing way to advertise, something we've never seen before. Search is really powerful in that sense. You know, if you think of other ways of advertising, you're almost like disrupting people and so forth. With search, we're actually targeting people who have interest in what we are promoting. So that's what we're going to look at. So I'll click on search. And yeah, so if you wanted, you could then add your website here. Not really necessary, but we'll skip that for now. You can add your phone and so forth and these different details, but you can add them later in your ad extensions and stuff. I'm going to touch on that later on. And then just give your campaign a name. So name, if you're going to be managing it with other people, you know, give it something that's memorable, descriptive, that will make it easy for you or others to know and understand what's actually in the campaign. without clicking through to it. Just so if it's a product, just give it a name of a product, and then say whether it's leads, it's a search campaign, and then give it a name, and then yeah, we click continue. So what I want to do is yeah, this is basic campaign setup, but I just want to cover some of the main points like bidding, campaign settings, keywords, and ads, and some of the ideas that may help you to set up when you're now setting up your campaign, just thinking about what you need to do. So one of the first things is your bidding strategy. From my experience, a lot of people struggle with bidding. What bid strategy should I use? There's about 6 or 7. When you come here, you only have 4 because we're only just starting. So later, you can always come back to the campaign and then see the actual bid strategies. But what this does, because we picked leads and we pick search, it gives us the options, the recommended different options. Now, the one that's recommended for this account is conversions, because if you remember, I showed you the conversions that are already set up for this account, and you can set that if it's already got historic data. But when you're starting a new campaign for a new product and a new service, usually I would go with maximizing clicks. Why you want to do that is because you want to try and get as much click volume for the budget that you have. So the system is going to bid to try and get you as much click volume as possible. Now, what you can do as well, if you want, you could put a limit and say, well, that's great, but I want to put a £1 limit just to make sure it doesn't go above that, which is fine. You know, you can test it and see what it does. But I usually recommend starting with that. And then with your conversion tracking data, you can then start to see, well, this is the number of conversions we've had in the last 30 days, in the last 60 days, and our cost per acquisition was maybe £30 or something. So you could change then later on, you could come into settings and say, I want to change it to conversions. And set a target cost per acquisition of £30. So the system will try and get your conversions at about that level or even lower than that. So that's fine. But when you don't have a lot of data, this is probably not the best option. The reason why it's mainly showing me this here is because this account already has data and so forth. So you could do that. But I almost always start with maximize clicks, and I put a bid limit and try and get as much click traffic. When you've got that traffic, you then can start to see what search terms you're getting, what results you're getting from it, and what search terms you need to block and remove totally from the campaign. Now, is another big strategy I need to show you, and this one is impression share. The idea behind this is, you know, over time, Google Ads has become more competitive. You know, in my industry, for example, we pay like £7 a click. And if you're in finance and all these other industries, you know, £12 a click is common. I manage campaigns for US-based companies, and, you know, $100 a click is common over there as well. So it's really got more competitive. So position is really important. So sometimes really coming up at the top is important. So if you're struggling to really achieve, you know, those top position 1, 2, and 3, and so forth, you could change it to an impression share bid strategy and say, for example, I want to come up in the absolute top of results page, and I want to come up 100% of the time, for example, but I want to put a bid cap of £5, yeah, or something like that. But you can change it to anything you want. You could also change it to 70%. I've just put 100% if you really want to be aggressive. This really makes a difference, and you will start to see your ads coming up really at the top. This is important for advertisers that really have to be somewhere up there in very competitive industry. But always test your bid limits, because if you don't set a bid limit and somebody else is doing that as well, it could really get expensive. So yeah, I do recommend putting some kind of cap or something. But you know, the beauty of it is you can adjust this if you find it's not working as you want. So you could always set a bid cap on that. I probably wouldn't do this when I'm setting up a new campaign, but later when I've got data, when I'm looking at my reports and I can see who my competitors are, not just competitors as the ones you know in the industry, but the ones that are actually coming up alongside your ads and so forth. So sometimes you may say Amazon is not your direct competitor, but if they're appearing for the same keywords and search terms, then they are, because it's also driving up your traffic, even if they're promoting something different. In Amazon, eBay, they do that and so forth. So you can always change that. Or if you want, you could just say, I just want to be somewhere. Okay, absolute top puts you exactly in position 1. And then top of results page puts you somewhere around 1 and 4, 1 and 3, somewhere there. Yeah, so it does make a difference. Then you can put your what target you want to reach and your maximum CPC bid limit. So these are just some things to be aware of. We're going to share this video at the end if you want to go over it. And if you want to ask any questions, you could always email me and stuff, and I'll be happy to take you through it. In subsequent webinars, we're going to actually look at management. You know, setting up a campaign is important. And it has to be set up properly with the right ad groups and everything. But the management is where a lot of the work is, because there's a lot of competition. You need to look at your search terms, your conversion metrics, your events in Google Analytics and stuff. So we'll cover some of those things in subsequent webinars. So as I mentioned, try and start with clicks and then set a limit and then see what it does. But, you know, test different things. One other thing that you get in Google Ads is experiments. We won't have time to cover that, but if you want, you could set up one campaign and then set up an experiment to test a different bid strategy and see how they perform. Surprises me the results that I always get. I always just look and I realize, wow, yeah, this bid strategy is doing better than what I actually thought. So running experiments is important, and that's key. Very simple to set up, and there's a tool in Google Ads that can do that for you. So we've set that, then we click next, and then we come to networks. Google is a large platform. As you saw, there's different ways to advertise. In fact, I'll give you some stats. We've got the Google search engine, which is obviously by far the largest in the world, followed by Bing and so forth. Under Google, Google has got search partners. So it's got over 100 other search engines which come under search partners. And these are big search engines like CNN and so forth. They also provide results for Google. And you can advertise on those if you want. You can leave it on and see how they perform for you, or you could just remove them. You obviously can't remove Google itself. It has to be part of that. But if you want to expand your reach, as it says here, you can target search partners and target that. Now, for me, I would say leave this one on, because you won't know until you test. And then this goes back to what I was saying earlier. What I wanted to actually mention earlier, when you're doing keyword research and all your different research and your competitor research, the best research you're going to get and the results and the knowledge you'll get is from testing things, testing keywords and so forth. Doing your keyword research and stuff is not going to tell you as much as, you know, really testing things. So in this case, I would say, leave the search partners on. Then when you're looking at your segment reports, their segment reports in the Google interface. So you can see how your search partner is performing. The only disadvantage with this is Google doesn't split search into the different ones. So you won't know which ones are performing well. It just groups them as one search partners, and you can't eliminate some of them as you can with display campaigns and so forth. So that's the search network. And then there's the display network. Now this one is, display advertising, mostly raising brand awareness. And for me, I don't know why Google still includes it here, because this is a very different way of advertising in Google Ads. With display, we are not targeting people who are searching. So we're targeting people who are browsing other websites. And then hopefully if they like what they see, whatever image ads we have and text ads, they will click through and come to our site. So it's a different model. If you want to advertise on the display network, my recommendation is set up a separate campaign and then test that and have more control over it, because this doesn't give you much control. So if you set up a separate display campaign, you'll be able to see which actual placements, which devices they're coming up on, and things like that. And you can remove specific sites, low quality ones. The display network has got over 3 million sites. I don't know if maybe some of you have heard of AdSense. Sites which have joined up with AdSense are part of the Google Display Network. So they display results for Google, and it's sort of like a revenue share. So when people click on those ads, those sites earn something out of it, and Google also earns, should be about 50% each or something. So something like that. When you start, I would recommend turning this off. Have I seen it working? Yes, I have, but not always. So I would say just turn this off. And the thing about it is, yeah, it's of course it doesn't share the traffic budget with that. It only displays on the display network if you still have budget left over from the search network. So yeah, if you wanted, you could test it, but I just generally just remove it and run it separately. Okay, so that's the display network. Then we come to locations. I'm just going to quickly go through some of these and just pick up some key points. Location targeting is something that people also struggle with. First thing I would say is some of us do target multiple countries and territories and so forth. But for most advertisers, so if you're targeting, maybe you've got 7 countries you ship to or you target, it's usually a good idea to have separate campaigns for countries, because that's a very big setting to just group it into one. Try and have separate ones like that, and then run them and test them and see which ones are performing. Because if you've got different countries, you can write specific messages for them. Because if you set multiple countries in one location, it means everybody sees the same messages and stuff. And sometimes you need to tailor messages to particular locations. So we're in the UK, some of you may not be in the UK, but whatever account you have, the default country will be the United Kingdom. So we could set that. In Google Ads, as some of you may know, you can target country, city, town, postcode, county, regions, and radius targeting. So I'll show you some of the more advanced targeting options. So if we click on enter another location, we could go advanced. So advanced generally has 2 main sections. If you've got many locations you want to target and you want to add them in bulk, you could add them one line after another. So you could just come and copy, paste them here, and then they'll come up. So for example, we say London, Paris, or, whatever. We can then just search, and then it gives us the countries there, and then you can target all of them. Or you can target one, exclude another. So say if I wanted to target that, I could then exclude that, and then it shows me on the map the areas I'm targeting. Yeah, it's quite it won't show us in one, but That's some of the things that it will do, and it will show you the reach. Another advanced feature is radius targeting. So if you're probably targeting a local audience or people around a certain radius, you could set it here and set a postcode, for example, and you could say something like that, and then go search, and then it shows you the map. One of the challenges of radius targeting is because of IP addresses and how they are allocated. What I tend to find with some clients I work with is that you will get a few calls outside of the location you're targeting because of how ISPs assign IP addresses. So this one is really powerful, especially for local service businesses. But it's, yeah, just be careful with it because it can really get annoying sometimes. It's possible to get 5% of your calls and inquiries may come from outside the location. So just something to be aware of, which is not usually an issue if you are targeting a specific town, London or whatever, or Los Angeles or whatever. That tends to be less of a problem. So that's just something to be aware of. Those are the advanced features. As I mentioned, a lot of this is testing, so it's just understanding what they do, but you should test them and change it after some time if you want on the same campaign, but give it some time to run and test and see how it performs. Something I would mention is location options. These are very important. The default, which is what Google wants and recommends, is you should target people regularly in or who've shown interest in your targeted locations. The challenge with this is that if you're targeting the UK only and you've set it to this, if someone is abroad in some other country and they search, for a UK company and yours is definitely going to come up, you may want it or you may not want it. So these are people who've shown interest in your targeted location. So sometimes you may not actually want to target those people. So you will get clicks from them and it will spend your budget and waste that budget. So the other option, which I usually recommend, is only target people who are in or regularly in your targeted locations. And then if you want to target people in other locations, as I mentioned, set up a different campaign and do that. But ideally, you should target people who are in your locations in one campaign and then go like that. Another thing, as I mentioned, is you can exclude certain locations. So you could exclude Milton Keynes, for example, and then target other locations that you want to target and so forth. So for example, if you're targeting the UK, but you don't want to target Wales, for example, you could exclude Wales like that. So very easy to do and something to think about. And then coming to languages, Charlotte raised hands. Can you, okay, go ahead, Charlotte. Yeah. You've got a question?
Can you hear me?
I can, yes, go ahead.
Hi, sorry to interrupt you. I've just got a question about location, so I thought it'd be a good time just to ask. We run an online clinic, so we don't, we can offer appointments to everyone in the UK. So we just want to know how we would decide on location, given that. Do we need to, should we choose a location, or because at the moment, we do, and our budget, obviously will be eaten up quite quickly. So we were wondering if we should maybe target more London, because if it's more of an affluent area, maybe people, could afford the services that we offer, or should that not make a difference? What would you advise?
I would advise just target, if your budget is small, I think we're going to come to budget, which is something that's important. If you're starting with a small budget, try and make it as specific as possible, for a new campaign. Here we're talking new campaign, try and keep it focused on specific location. As long as there's enough volume, in the locations that you want to target. But budget is a very important factor, because if you start branching out into other areas and the budget is low, yeah, you're not going to get the results you need, and it may frustrate you and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. I'll come to budget quickly. What's our time? I think we're left. Thank you for that question. Yeah, so that's something to be aware of. Budget is key, and we'll come to it shortly. Languages. Generally, one language per campaign is good. I know some people set one language as a browser, but they search with a different language and stuff like that. But whatever language is set here, your ads should be in that language, you know? So don't set multiple languages and then have ads in just one language. Yeah, people do speak multiple, but you will end up getting clicks. And if you get clicks from people who can't get it or understand and so forth, it's going to cost you money and not going to be great results. Okay. What I'll come to now is just audiences. When we're running search campaigns, especially when we're starting, we don't want to, you can set an audience and say you want to target people of a certain demographic. So maybe 18 to 45-year-olds or something like that. That's okay, but the primary way of targeting with search campaigns is keywords. So as long as someone is searching for something and it's relevant, you know, don't narrow it down too much, especially when you're starting, unless you're 100% sure that you want to go for a specific demographic. But in most cases, just let it run, and then in your reports, you can then start to see, you know, which demographics are doing great, male, female. And the other problem is you sometimes find there's an unknown demographic and so on, because Google doesn't have all the data. That's based on people who are logged in. So don't narrow it down too much, especially now we're talking of a new campaign. We're not talking management and all these other things. So just, you know, we're targeting people who are searching a specific way, and we want them to convert, you know, regardless of whatever demographics. The demographics will come later. Okay, just something I want to highlight before we move on to keywords and ads. There's ad schedule. This feature it helps you set your ads to run on specific days and hours. The reason why I want us to come to this one, with more settings, most of the time you just leave the default, but this one allows you to really think about who you want to target. Many businesses operate 9 to 5 or whatever hours, and they're off and so forth. So you could always come in and say Monday to Friday, whatever, 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever to 5 is what we want to set. And that's fine, because you want to target people within those time frames, let's say 6 p.m. But what we tend to find is that regardless of the industry, even business to business, if you target people at all times, on all days and so forth, a lot of people are searching outside of these hours, and sometimes they tend to be the decision makers. They tend to be the people that are gonna, you know, decide whether to go with your business or service or buy or whatever and so forth. So my recommendation is, when you're starting Google Ads, target people at all times, regardless of the industry. And then you can then go into your reports and see which are your best days, which are your best hours. And trust me, you're going to be surprised when you see some of the stuff, when you look at the conversions. One other thing I would say as well is a lot of conversions don't happen on the first click. So somebody will search now, click, and read your site and everything else, and then leave. They may come back in a few hours or in a few days, but many times they're going to search again, and they're going to look for your ad, maybe at a different time, and they'll be hoping to see it there, and then they will click and then they convert. I mean, Google has changed the analytics platform, so we could see the channel, multi-channel reports, but those were really showing that a lot of people do shop around, regardless of the industry. So it's quite important to be there when they are searching, and for them, when they come back, then you can convert. You can also set up remarketing and all these other advanced tools, but being there is really important. Remember, the primary way we are targeting the search campaign is people who are searching. It's high intent. So even if someone is searching at midnight, they can still send you an email, they can purchase, they can do something. So just target them like that. Don't narrow it down too much. So this one, worth thinking about. But again, if your budget is small, yeah, you can run it at specific times and so forth. But generally, I would say set it on all days and all hours. Okay, so now we come to keywords and ads. How do we come up with our keywords and ads? I mentioned keyword research, which is something very important and something that we should do. Some of the things I would say is when you're setting up campaigns in Google Ads is, and this is recommended by Google, don't put try and put between 5 and 15 keywords in an ad group. If you have too many keywords, it then affects things like quality score and so forth. So try and limit it to 5 to 10 to 15 keywords. That way you are able to have your keywords in the ad and stuff. So that's really important. But that also allows you to have multiple ad groups, and then they can be tightly themed. So they'll be themed around something specific for that product and stuff. And then your quality scores are good. Number of ad groups. For each campaign, I would recommend having no more than 15 ad groups. If you've got not too many ad groups, it becomes harder to manage. So maybe you need a different campaign and something like that. So that's something to be aware of. Right, so picking keywords. I mentioned that you could do the keyword research tool. This is also a keyword research tool. So if you wanted, you could plug in your website and it will come up with some keyword suggestions. So for example, if I was to search and get keyword suggestions, I could search right there. Obviously, the advantage of doing it before is the fact that you can map out your ad groups. So you could say, I've got ad group 1, 2, 3, and so forth, and these are the keywords that I want to do. But if you wanted to get started quickly, this is one way you could do it, and then just find different keywords here, remove the ones you don't want, and you could take them from here and then put them in Excel and then split them. When you set up the campaign, you don't have to activate it at one go, because yeah, you could review it later and see before you actually click the enable button. But when we're looking at keywords, there are some recent changes, especially if you've been running ads for some time. You will know that Google changed the match types recently. And there's a bit of a challenge. What we had before was we had broad match, phrase match, exact match, and modified broad match. So Google got rid of modified broad match keywords. And now we only have broad match, phrase match, and exact match. I'll explain these in a minute. But the honest truth is exact match no longer really is exact match, unfortunately. It's not what it was before, and phrase match is not as well. Things really have changed. So what are these? Exact match is basically, if you look, I don't know if you can see my screen, it's got brackets around it. So what you're telling the system, so if I was to say I put that keyword with brackets around it like that, what I want the system to do in this case is only target searches which are exactly with this. Yeah. which narrows it down a lot. The problem with that is Google has changed exact match. So sometimes you will find that if the system thinks a particular search is relevant for these keywords, it's going to show it, even if it's not exactly in this format. So sometimes it will show without words around it or in the middle and so forth. But some of these words will definitely be in there. So exact match, from my experience, has changed, but it's still worth having when you're starting your campaign. Then we've got phrase match. So phrase match is with the quotation marks around it, something like that. So basically, this tells the system only target searches which have these words, but it can have other words before and after. And as I mentioned, this has changed also slightly. Phrase match is not exactly phrase match anymore. Sometimes it brings up words in between. It also targets synonyms and so forth. So that's just something to be aware. But as I mentioned, you need to test it. When you're starting a campaign, I generally advise you to start with exact match and phrase match keywords. Don't start with broad match. Broad match doesn't have any syntax. And the problem with that is it drives a lot of traffic. And before you've even built your negative keywords, you're going to find yourself, when you look at your report, you're going to find you spend a lot of money on searches that are not relevant. So you need to build a good negative keyword list first. And then, yeah, if you want to expand and get more searches and stuff, you can then add some broad match keywords and see how it performs for you. This is all testing, as I mentioned. This, you really have to test it and see what actual searches you get. But when you're starting, try and start with exact match and phrase match and have between 5 and 15 keywords. Okay, Danny, you want to say something? Let me see. I'll just unmute you. I think it's better if we do it that way. Right, okay. Go ahead, yeah.
Hiya. So
Hi.
you said to have between 5 and 15 keywords. Would you say, would you separate them, saying having maybe 5 as an exact match and then 10 as a phrase match, or how would you kind of separate those?
Yeah, you can do that, but try and keep your ad groups up to no more than 15. I mean, separating them based on match types is okay. The only thing though is something I need to mention. Keywords and search terms are different things. So keyword is what you put into Google Ads, but a search term is what people are searching with, and sometimes they're very different. So the match types controls the type of searches you get. You know what I mean? So splitting them too much is not really, it helps a bit with sometimes with quality scores, especially if there are many keywords. But it's okay to put phrase match and exact match in the same ad group. I find it okay. As long as the keywords are very similar to each other, they shouldn't be very different. They should be tightly themed. You know what I mean? But I do find some people do put phrase match keywords in one ad group, exact match. I've never seen any real benefit to that. What we want to know exactly is what search terms are we going to get for the keywords that we have. And the search terms report is going to show us that when we've run our campaigns and we're getting traffic and so forth. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank
you.
you.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Right. So that's that. And then, yeah, so different ways of doing it, but you know, don't have too many ad groups, don't have too many keywords, because it affects your quality scores. And quality scores is something that's quite important because it shows you how your ads and keywords are performing and so forth. Right, so now we come to our ads. We're going to be finished shortly. Writing ads. Ads are very important because that's possibly one of the only things that people see about your account. So it's the first thing that they see when they search and so forth. Yes, you can add things like ad extensions, which are important because they enhance everything, but the ad itself should really be strong and effective. And your final URL should be highly targeted to whatever people are searching for. If you've got a specific product page, try and send people to that rather than sending them to a category page. And it's almost always the case that you should not promote your homepage unless you're for specific industry and so forth. Unless you're promoting your brand terms and stuff. Always try and send people to the specific page. You don't want people going around looking for stuff, getting lost, because they're going to click away. You're going to have high bounce rates and you're going to be charged and you have lower conversion rates. So always send people to the exact final URL. And when you add your URL, whatever it is here, / and so forth, it then comes up in the display path. And then one of the things you can do, because what we want to do as well, one of the metrics you need to be tracking besides your conversions and so forth, you need to be tracking click-through rates. So how many people actually click our ads of people who've seen them? So we want to, high click-through rate is always a good thing. I always find it's very important, but it's not the most important because you've got conversions and so forth. But it really tells you how well you reach in your ads. For most industries, I'd say let's try and achieve more than 5%. Anything below 2% is a bit low. But if you're hitting 5% and above, I think you're doing well. 10% is possible. 15%, not very common, but it happens, especially with brand terms and so forth. But yeah, so try and think about that when you're writing your ads. And one of the things you can do is try and include your keywords in the display URL. It's not saying that that's where people are going to go to, but it's like putting your keywords so that the display URL really looks relevant. And that really helps with click-through rates and even conversions. You know, when you've got a good click-through rate, you generally have a good conversion in most cases. So that's important. So these are the parts which are 15 characters, so you can put your keywords in there and so forth. These are extensions. I'll come to that briefly in a moment. One of the benefits that has happened, 2022, Google got rid of expanded text ads. Expanded text ads had 3 headlines, 2 descriptions. These are responsive search ads, and they've got 15 headlines and 4 descriptions. Now, it's not saying that your ad is going to come up with 15 headlines or 4 descriptions, but the big change that Google has done is before we would create the ad, and whatever we put in expanded text ads or standard text ads is what people would see. Now with responsive search ads, the ad is actually created at auction time. So the actual ad itself is created at auction time. So the system quickly, because it's much faster than you and I, it finds the right ads of what you've added and puts together the best combinations to bring good click-through rates and conversions. What I found before we got before expanded text ads were removed, responsive search ads were generally performing much better than the other formats because the system really creates the ad based on the searches. So based on that, try and use, you can add up to 15, try and use all these. So you've got 30 characters, not a lot of space. So you have to be a bit creative, but try and use as much of these as possible. Include your benefits, your features, stuff that's really relevant for what people are actually looking for. Don't just include them just for the sake of it, but benefits that people are interested in. The minimum is 3, so required, but always try and add as many as possible. And as you're doing that, you will see this ticking off, add headlines, popular keywords. And I would say in headline 1, always try and put your main keyword, whatever it is in that ad group. And then if you can, try and pin it to position one, because when people actually see the keyword that they've searched with in the ad, they're more likely to click, and that improves your click-through rates and your conversions. So some of the things to think about: always include a call to action. What is it that you want people to do? And, you know, do you want them to buy something? If they click on that ad, the page that they land on, when I talked about landing pages, should be the exact, they shouldn't look for the product. They should be able to buy it from there, or whatever action it is. If it's a white paper download, they should find it on that page and be able to download. But having a call to action is very important. Don't just talk about things like how long you've been in business and all these kind of things. Talk about what people are looking for. So good copywriting skills are important. And yeah, that's really key. Same with your description. You've got 90 characters, but with this one, you've got 4. So good descriptions are important. Only one usually will show up for most ads. So the system will rotate based on what it thinks people are likely to be interested in, and then click through. So good descriptions are important, that really talk to people, talk about what they're looking for more than just your business and so forth. So that's really key. And then I'll show you right here, some of the things we need to do is things like adding, if you've got a phone number that you want people to click through to, is add your call extensions. So people can click through from the ad and it just goes through quickly. So you can do that and then apply it. And then, yeah, it just makes it easier for people to connect. You can also add a lead form. When you've set up your campaign and you go to assets, you can just go through each of these ad extensions and then see which ones are relevant. Some of us are not collecting leads, so maybe this one is not important, so you leave it out. But what you can do is add other extensions like site links. These extensions just enhance your ads and they make them more relevant, and you're likely to get more clicks. So, you know, things like get in touch, testimonials, anything that will lead them to other pages that may be relevant for them. So sometimes when people come back, it's not necessarily that they want to just look at that page. If they search again, maybe now they want to look at your testimonial page. So show them in the ad. And you can test them. The reports will actually show you which ones are performing, which ones are not performing, and so forth, and you can do that. And then finally, time is almost gone, but I just want to talk about budget, because money is the thing that, you know, really makes this work or not work. And many times, many of us struggle with, you know, what budget should we set, and, you know, when should we increase budget? What I would say is, I'll give you an example. I work with a wide range of businesses, and I do work with some large companies, some who are even starting from scratch. And even some of these large advertisers always start with a small budget. Very few companies start with £10,000, unless they've done it sometime in the past and they've had experience with it. Almost everybody starts with £300, £500, 600, and that's okay. I mean, some really large companies start with that because they want to test it and see what works. They want to test and see where the results are going to come from and so forth. However, if you set your budget too low, especially if the average cost per click is high. For example, if you're in the mortgage industry, you know, cost per click is like 15, 16 pounds. So if you set £500, it's going to take you a bit longer than most other industries to see what results you're getting. And it's fine, but just be aware that it could take you some months before you see. So a larger budget helps in the sense that it helps you quickly to see which is working and which is not. And then it helps you to see which searches and so forth, and you can block them and quickly achieve your objectives and goals and things like that. But don't make it too large, because that really frustrates people. Because what happens with Google Ads is, especially with the changes that they've made with the match types and the keywords, they're driving a lot of searches which are not relevant. And sometimes, and this is unfortunate, sometimes you will find you leave your ads to run for a few days, and you get there and you find 70% of the traffic is not relevant. Maybe people have been using the word free, and you don't offer something free, but because you didn't add it as a negative keyword, it's driving your traffic. I mean, when you're starting with Google Ads, it's impossible to have all the negative keywords to block any searches. You will build that over time. So you just need to have a reasonable budget that will help you set it right. So budget, basically, how do you calculate it? So for example, if you want to run your ads, say you want £600 or something like that, and you want to run them 30 days, so it's £20 a day. So it's set at a £20 limit. However, if you want, you could set a tiered budget if you've got multiple campaigns. That's something later when you've got, that just gives you more control if you've got like 6 or so campaigns. So budget is set on a daily budget level and so forth. So you just take your maximum amount you want to spend the first month, just divide it by the number of days your ads are going to run, and then you just set it there. So, you know, what's the best budget to start with? On average, I tend to find a lot of, even advertisers who've been running for a while, but they want to test something, £500 tends to be the average. So that's, I think, okay to start with. And then don't make that mistake of just running it. At some point, you need to increase, especially if your return on investment is good, your return on ad spend is good. Just keep increasing it. Because when you increase it, what happens is your ads start appearing for some searches that it may not have been appearing for earlier, because they tend to be very good searches and your ads were just running out before, you know, you got sufficient numbers of them. So you do tend to find that when you increase your budget, sometimes your conversion rates go up, and it just works brilliantly. So that's something to really think about. You could send me a message if for any specific industry, and I'll give you some ideas on what budget to set and so forth. So yeah, budget is really important. You know, if you set the right budget, sometimes, you know, even if you're not getting the best searches, as long as your return is good, sometimes you tend to find your budget really helps and so forth. But yeah, everything should be set up correctly, and the budget itself. And then once you've set all of that and you're happy with it, you can then just review. I obviously didn't add a lot of things, but when you're reviewing it, it will tell you if there are any issues to the campaign. Select a location. I don't think I did that. Add more keywords and so forth. So it just gives you some insights into what to do. It will tell you what budget you set, add keywords, and so forth. Yeah. Then once you're happy with that, you can publish it. I wouldn't be able to publish it now because I didn't finish everything. But as I mentioned, a lot of this is, yeah, you're going to have to test it and see, you know, what returns you're getting, and then start tweaking the campaigns and optimizing them that way. And you'll see amazing results. Most of the work really comes down to management. Setting it up correctly is important, but most of the time it's going to be managing, and that's where the bulk of the work is. So that brings us to an end. Thank you all for listening. Is there anyone with a question, comment, or any thoughts around this? You can always reach out to me if you like, and so forth. But I thank you all for joining. Anyone with a question? Any more questions? No, we don't have any questions. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Check out, we've got more, what can I say? We've got more webinars coming up where I'm going to be talking about management and so forth. That's really important. There, we really go into it and we're able to see, you know, what we need to do to really improve our campaigns. Setting it up is important, but the management is really key. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. That ends our webinar right there. Thank you.